Good morning, sir. Good morning, everyone. Oh, good afternoon, sir. It's
Right.
afternoon.
Good afternoon, ladies and
Good
gentlemen.
afternoon, sir.
And I am pleased.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon once again.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, I'm pleased to meet with you this afternoon. And I suppose this is going to be our second meeting since we started this diet. And this is about 30 minutes past 2. I just had to call the ICT department to enable us start the class on time. So sorry for that delay from their side. So having done that, I want to believe many are here in the class, and we can quickly proceed to our main discourse this afternoon. You will recall that last time we had the opportunity of meeting. We stopped at our duties as social workers. And I want to believe we have had the opportunity of actually revising the little we could do the last 2 weeks when we met. So once again, I want to welcome you as a way of refreshing our memory. You recall that we talk about the purpose of social work. We talk about why social work is important, and why do we have to consider this particular course, that is looking at the overview of what this course is all about. Essentially, you are familiar with some of these things, except that we do not take proper cognizance of what is going on around us. And now we want you to now exhibit your behavior as professional social workers, not quack in this regard. Among our duties, we talk about promoting the right to participation. We talk about challenging negative discrimination and also challenging injustice or challenging policies that are harmful or policies that are not working well. And we are also charged with the responsibility of ensuring we have equitable distribution of resources. And the fact that any unjust policies and practices, we should be vanguard of challenging that as well. And also, as social workers, you should also know that you cannot work alone. You need to work with other professionals. And why do we have to talk about social work competencies? So these are areas we want to briefly consider this afternoon. When we started, I tried to introduce you to some of the competencies that are required of us as professionals, just like we have in other similar professions. Social work competencies are very important because you also know that they support whatever you do. When you have your competencies, this is supported by ethical consideration, because when you profess, people should see in you that you also observe the ethics of that profession. So when you take a decision, people get to know that the competencies you have actually inform that decision you have made. That is why people say he has made an informed decision. So again, when the social work competency also help everyone, social worker, to promote excellent practice. It enables us to show professional commitment, because when the competencies are there, we tend to have quality service delivery. And that professional commitment will be there. Anywhere, any area you notice that this requires social work intervention, when you intervene, your commitment will be different from somebody who is not a professional. Any profession has that. Every profession has that, let me say. But as social worker, when you are taken through these competencies, this actually enables your professional commitment. Our conduct and practice is also enhanced. This also help our evidence that we have that knowledge of what we profess. You see, we have so many people, we have so many professions. That does not mean being a medical doctor does not mean all medical doctors are professionally skilled. Not all medical doctors are equally gifted. Not all engineers are professionally sound. Just like we have not all lecturers. Not all lecturers can lecture efficiently and effectively. So it also helps us to maintain a positive attitude, as well as allow us to take charge of our professional development. Because as a professional, you will not want to stay at a particular point. You want to move up the rung of the ladder. In professional development, we talk about mandatory professional development program, which is also known as a continuous education program that we have in all professions. That is why we do this every year, so that we can also enhance our knowledge. We can also strengthen our knowledge base and we solidify whatever we have, and we also live by the day. We live by what obtains at present. Then we can also learn new skills. It enables us to want to learn new skills. When you get of any innovation in the profession, you want to know it. That is a competence. That means that you are improving your competency. That is why this particular program is very, very important. Well, you understand more our role as social worker, just like I explained the other time we had the class. It also enables us to establish and maintain the trust and confidence of our clients and service users. You see, when you are competent and you exhibit professional competencies, and your client can see you that, oh, this person, that trust will be developed in your service user. Of course, as adults, many of us in this class, we are adults. You have a choice of the hospital you attend. You have a choice of the market you go. You have a choice of the supermarket you patronize. You have a choice of the kind of cloth or the fashion designer you also make use of. Why? Why do you have that choice? Or why did you decide? Why did you choose? Why in the first place you do not stand, or why in the first place, why didn't you limit yourself to that your neighbor who is a tailor very close to you? Why do you have to travel miles? Why do you have to travel a number of kilometers before you get your preferred tailor? Why? Is it not because of the competence? Is it not because of that? Because all of them, they are professional, but you prefer to go to the most competent. So essentially, that's your tailor is doing what pleases you. And because you are pleased, you have trust in your tailor. Some of them around you, they may be competent, but in the other way, they are not all that efficient. Perhaps they disappoint. You don't want to go. The trust will not be there. But that's other one that is far from you, but is competent and is also reliable. You want to go to that place. You already have that trust in that person. So that is how it happens between the client and the other person and the service provider. So exactly that is what happens in our own case as social workers. And ours is even quite different, and it's critical because we're dealing with human beings. We are not dealing with machines. We are not dealing with tools. We are not dealing with materials. We are dealing with human beings. The moment a professional just misbehaves, or a professional has a misconduct, that's the end of that career. that person should just forget about it. So that is why, as social worker, our own character, our own attitude, our own way of life must be very, very different from others. And you should also remember that not all what people call common sense, not all people call common sense is always good. But as social workers, you tread the path of good sense. Please mark it. You tread the path of good sense, not the common sense. Common sense most times are not at all good. The common sense are not good sense at all. Sometimes. But when you tread the path of good sense, you get to go to a greater height. So, what are these social work competencies that we've been talking about? These social work competency represents the dimensions of social work practice that all social workers are expected to master during their professional training and practice. So you are expected to master this competency. 1, demonstrate ethical and professional behavior. I want to believe we all have our material with us. If you cannot go along with me, you can read later for you to understand better. You, as a social worker, you need to demonstrate ethical and professional behavior. Like I said before now, as a professional, your own behavior, your behavior must be professional. So how do we know that it's professional? Because when you follow the ethic of that profession, then we know that actually, no wonder. When you see a first man, anybody in the armed forces, the kind of conduct such a person will put up, you will get to guess that, oh, this person must be a first man because of his behavior, because of what he is doing, because you must have seen certain ethics. You must have actually exhibited certain, you must have actually observed certain ethics in his or her profession. So social workers understand the value base of the profession and its ethical standards, as well as relevant laws and regulations that may impact practice at the micro, meso, and macro levels. What are we talking about? As social workers, you understand frameworks of ethical decision-making and how to apply principles of critical thinking to those frameworks in practice, research, and policy arenas. You know, we have our own ethical standards. I don't know whether I mentioned it the other time. If you have not actually laid your hand on the gazette of the institute, that is the act establishing the institute, find time to go through that particular act that established the institute, that is the chartered act of the institute. That's that act that gave the institute the status of being chartered, that is being recognized by the law of the land. You need to lay your hand on that particular booklet and go through. While you are reading through, you see our own ethical standards there. So any violation, either by omission or commission, of any part of that standard or any part of that particular law may call for sanction and may call also for any penalties. So in that way, you should know. So because there's no ignorance in law. So I want to refer you to that particular gazette for you to know our own ethical standard as social workers, as regulated by the National Assembly. And it has become the law of the land, which you should also know, just like any other law that are related to this particular, to our own profession, to our practice. Anyway, this is not a policy class. If you are in policy, it is for those that are in the postgraduate class. In the policy class, there are certain legal frameworks, there are legal instruments that are relevant to our own practice. So as social workers, you need to know all this so that your ethical standards can be a better one. And your own ethical demonstration will be a standard one. So social workers recognize personal values and the distinction between personal and professional values. They also understand how their personal experiences and affective reactions influence their professional judgment and behavior. You see, between your personal interests and the professional interests, there must be an harmonization. There shouldn't be you shouldn't mix your personal interest with the professional interest. That is what we are talking about here. Your personal interests and your professional values must be well recognized. You should be able to distinguish between the two so that you don't mix it together. Because if your personal interest or your personal value is intermixed with that, it may affect your service users. As a social worker, we believe that you understand the profession's history, its mission, and the roles and responsibilities of the profession. Just like we talk about the duties, our duties and our responsibilities. When you understand that, you also understand the role of other professions when engaged in interprofessional teams. You know, we mentioned teamwork the other time. You should learn how to build a team. As a social worker, you don't work alone. You work in solidarity with others. You work in an interdisciplinary environment where you bring in other experts, where your own effort or your intervention may end, others will have to begin there. In that way, you don't put your service user in jeopardy or in danger, or you don't put him or her in further harm. What you do is you now link him or her to another professional who you think can be of a good assistance. For instance, case of a rape now. When a minor is raped, as a social worker, there is a limit to which you can intervene. When you handle your own area that is socially related, when it gets to the medical treatment, clinical treatment, you hand over to the medical doctor or the medical personnel. You hand over to the clinical team to continue. You may now do the follow-up, so you cannot do it alone. But if ab initio, you didn't involve other professionals, or you didn't work in solidarity with them, that may create a problem. This is one of the ethics that you should also observe. We should, as social workers, also recognize the importance of lifelong learning and are committed to continually updating their skills to ensure they are relevant and effective. This is part of the ethics that we'll make use of. I talked about the continuous professional development the other time. This is what this one is talking about. We should also, as social workers, we also understand emerging forms of technology and the ethical use of technology in social work practice. How do people use technology these days? Even our mobile phone, how do we use it? Social media, do we use it to the advantage of the populace? Do we use it to the advantage of the society? How best do we use it? So as social workers, how do we do that? We should recognize that and how best we can bring in ethical consideration while we are making use of technology, even while you are dealing with your clients or your service users. It's important. Furthermore, social worker, you make ethical decisions by applying the standards of the C-ISOWN. You see, I mentioned it the other time, code of ethics, relevant laws and regulations, models for ethical decision making, ethical conduct of research, and additional code of ethics as appropriate to context. As appropriate to context. I mentioned it the other time. We also use reflection and self-regulation to manage personal values and maintain professionalism in practice situations. Use reflection, self-regulation. Everybody is prone to do anything. But when you self-regulate your action, then you behave well. That is, you have a kind of self-discipline. You regulate yourself in whatever, in your behavior, in your conduct, anywhere. What do? You try to distinguish between personal values and societal value or professional values. Look at those in the magistrates, the people of the bench, the judges, the magistrates, and all this. All of them, as part of their professional, their ethical professional conduct, they don't just attend any program, they don't just attend any party. Even when they go, they don't announce. They don't let people know that this is the judge, this is this, because it's against their professional ethics. You hardly see them in public outing, except it is something that affects them directly. So that is one of their own ethics and which they maintain at all times. You should also demonstrate professional demeanor in behavior, appearance, and oral, written, and electronic communication. As social workers, how do you communicate? How do you talk? Even while you're in public bus, even while you're in a public place, even when you are also in a place where where people are making comments. How do you make your own comments in the midst of people, on the street, at a junction, at a joint, where you are relaxing, or at parties? A social worker, we should be modest, and we should have a kind of self-restraint wherever we are, because as a social worker, you are a professional. You don't just talk anyhow. You regulate what you say, and you try to ensure that when you talk, you know, people that know you as a professional, they want to say, even social worker A, B, or C said this. They may quote you. Don't you know that you have a name? And our place, when you have a name, you try to protect that name. Your integrity must be protected. But it is when you don't have name that you can just behave anyhow. A clergy now, a clergy driving his car, and somebody just drive carelessly, maybe beside him or in front or wherever, and the clergy starts cursing the person, starts raining curses on that person. Has he demonstrated what he is professing? No. As a clergyman, is expected to be above board. He's expected to have patience. He's expected to control his emotions. He is expected to also control his anger. He's expected to control whatever he says. You don't just talk anyhow because you are a clergyman. The same goes for other professions. So we should, as social workers, we should also watch what we say, our oral, written, and electronic communication. When people comment on social media, how do you comment? What do you say? Do you say things that people will see this as a professional, or you just approach issues subjectively? Do you approach it objectively? Do you bring in objectivity in what you do, or you just feel this is what people are saying on the street, let me just join them and say it? No, as social workers, there should be a kind of regulation. There should be a kind of how do we restrain from us. We should use technology ethically and appropriately to facilitate practice outcomes, because if you don't use it well, the outcome will be affected. I want to believe when we have the output may just be there. We may not get our real objectives of why we are doing the intervention. But when it comes to outcome, we are talking about what impact, what have we been able to take out of that? The output will just be there, without useless, just like building a house without occupation or without anything inside that house. The house is just an output. The house is there, we know that the house is there, but nobody is making use of that house. So what's the essence of building the house in the first place? So we have just wasted our resources. So we should be very careful and always evaluate what is going to affect or what our outcomes will be when we start an intervention with any client or our service users. So our outcome is very, very important. The practice outcome, that is the end result. That is the end result. And that's the end of that means, which you have started sometimes or a few minutes ago. That is going to be the end. So that end is very important, and that is our target. And that is what we are looking at. If the outcome is not in any intervention, it is of no need. One wouldn't have wasted his or her time to do that. So use supervision and consultation to guide professional judgment and behavior. You consult with others, you know, they know more than you know. You don't pretend as if you know everything. Social worker don't do that. No one is a monopoly of has that monopoly of knowledge. Then infuse social work principles and interaction with clients and other relevant stakeholders. Other relevant stakeholders may be anybody. Relevant stakeholder, just ensure that you engage them so that you become real professional. When you do well, people will not ask you who are those people that has actually contributed to that doing well. They must have praised you first before they ask the next question, or they may not even have that time to ask you. They will say social worker so perform credibly well, so it's therefore recommended for so and so and so. So that is how it works. Competency 2. Engage diversity and difference in practice. How do I mean? Social workers understand how diversity and difference characterize and shape the human experience and are critical to the formation of identity. The dimensions of diversity are understood as the intersectionality of multiple factors, including but not limited to age, class, color, culture, disability and ability, ethnicity, gender identity, expression, immigration status, and so on and so forth, including political ideology, race, religion, sex, sexual orientation, and tribal sovereign status. What are we talking about here? As social workers, you should try to understand the diversity in human nature. You should try to understand the diversity and difference in practice. The way a social worker can practice in Lagos, being a metropolitan city, is different from the way that person can practice in the remote village or in the remote local government in Kwara State, or in Kano State, or in Sokoto or Kebbi or Maiduguri. Because Lagos is a metropolitan city, there are certain characteristics that are known for Lagos. Lagos has its own peculiarities. Lagos as a state is specific in certain areas. So in that wise, the condition of each area of our operation determine what we do. For instance, don't forget that we do not discriminate. It's one of the things we fight against. We challenge social discrimination. And as a social worker, you should understand that there is diversity in everything we also do. As a social worker, when you go to North now, and as a social worker, you try to do things against their religion. You know, majority are Muslims. So which means Islamic principles will always affect their conduct and their attitude. So you should recognize that as a social worker and leave them as they are. It's not your business what religion they practice. The same thing, you do not look at the age, you do not look at the class, but recognize everybody as they are. And in fact, that is what we call regard. When you leave them as they are and you treat them as they are, live with them as they are, you get a good outcome from whatever you are doing. You cannot treat everybody equally. You cannot say they are the same. Every individual is unique. But we are all human beings. That is a common denominator. But everyone is also unique. We have a black man, we have a white man. We have our own orientation, we have our own culture. Our culture is different from that of the white men. The culture in Yoruba land is different from the culture in the Igbo land. The same for the Hausas, the Nupe, the Bari, the Efik, and all other Urubos, and all this. You should recognize that as social workers, and you don't need to discriminate. But because of that difference, you now maximize that difference and ensure that they gain from that intervention you are bringing in as a social worker. Social workers understand that as a consequence of difference, a person's life experiences may include oppression, poverty, marginalization, alienation, as well as privilege, power, and acclaim. Because of that, you know, we have the rich, we have the poor. Because of that status, you recognize that what you do for the life that a rich man deserves is the same life that a poor man also deserves. So when you recognize that and you understand that, and you know that the consequence of any difference or any diversity is either one is above the other. It's either that one person has more privileges than the other. That is how we have it in the society. And you treat them like that. And you ensure that what is due for A is given to A, and what is due for B is given for B. And that is what we call equity. It's not no equality, it's equity. It's equity. Some people will be in power, while some will be their followers. Some will be leaders, some will be followers. As time goes on, some of the followers, among the followers, somebody else may also be a leader. At that particular point, you should also treat him as a leader. You don't treat him as a follower again. So when your service users has actually graduated from a particular stage of development to another one, you treat him as such. Social workers also understand the forms.
Don't get me, sir.
We go burn you. I don't use them.
That the honor, the offer, the honor, the offer. You got to wait to say you want to do something. Eh?
You don't finish.
Hello, that person should please allow us to finish this class. Can you please?
When you bring her from the back, you're not talking anything.
No, for this one.
Supposed to.
Hello.
Oh, no.
Supposed to say.
That person,
you talking?
You're not talking.
Sir.
No.
Can you mute your mic?
You don't.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I want to believe such interruption will not come and draw us back again. Please, if you are not talking, can you please mute your mic? Social workers also understand the forms and mechanisms of oppression and discrimination, recognize the extent to which a culture's structures and values, including social, economic, political, cultural exclusion, may oppress, marginalize, alienate, or create privilege and power. Of course, I explained that earlier. Social workers apply and communicate understanding of the importance of diversity and difference in shaping life experiences in practice. They also present themselves as learners and engage clients and constituencies as experts of their own experiences. They apply self-awareness and self-regulation to manage the influence of personal biases and values in working with diverse clients and constituencies. Use inclusive strategies that carefully consider the context of individuals, families, groups, organizations, and/or communities, and challenge common assumptions, solicit ideas, and get inspiration from clients and other relevant stakeholders. Well, the inclusive strategies ensures that you bring in everybody into the scale, whether poor or rich, whether young or old, male or female, etc. Whether it belongs to community A or community B, you ensure that everybody is actually involved in whatever way we want to do. So this, when you do all this, that tries to portray you as somebody that is competently professional. Competency 3. Advance human rights and social, economic, and environmental justice. Do not forget that one of our duties that we will consider the other time has to do with promoting human rights, promoting the rights of everybody, whether young or old, whether male or female. We want to promote the right of everybody, and we want to ensure that we challenge any social discrimination, economic discrimination, or any injustice within our environment. So as social worker, we should be in the position to have the skill embedded in this. Social workers understand that every person, regardless of position in society, has fundamental human rights, such as freedom, safety, privacy, and adequate standard of living, healthcare, and education. We also understand the global interconnection of oppression, and we know all these conventions on human rights. We know all this. As social workers, we should know. So when anybody violates any of this, right, you should know. We are also knowledgeable about theories of human need and social justice. And we also have that knowledge of strategy to promote social and economic justice and human rights. We should have it. If we don't have that knowledge, we should have it. We should try and possess that skill to ensure that we promote social justice, we promote economic justice, as well as we promote the right of everybody. If you go to, if you try and read our constitution, you see the fundamental human rights, just like it is stated in the United Nations Human Rights, whatever, all the conventions of human rights, all these are taken from those conventions, and Nigeria being a signatory to that convention, we are bound to observe that human rights. That is why you see people, the young ones, about a few months ago, or last month, was it last month, when we have this end bad governance protest? I think they are planning for another one in October. So because when some people were saying they should not protest, some were saying they have that right to protest because it's the right, and that right is guaranteed in the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land. So any human right, any fundamental human rights that everybody has, the social workers should protect that, and we should also promote it so that nobody is allowed to trample upon that right or to violate the right of another person. So as social workers, do you also evaluate yourself? Do you also have self-reflect that you are not violating the right of others, or you are not actually trample on the right of others? So you too also assess yourself. Social workers also understand the strategies designed to eliminate oppressive structural barriers to ensure that social good, right, and responsibility are distributed equitably, and so on and so forth. So essentially, social workers apply their understanding of socio-economic and environmental justice to advocate for human rights at the individual and system level, at the community level, and the societal level. You should use whatever understanding you have to promote and advocate for human rights. You should also social workers also engage in practices that advance socio-economic and environmental justice, or we'll be saying, facilitate team and coalition building, and other collaborative strategies for promoting system change designed to reduce social and economic inequalities. Don't forget, we are there as social workers to remove that barrier between the rich and the poor, to remove the barrier between the have and the have-not, to remove the barrier between the able and disabled, to remove that barrier between the leaders and the led. That barrier, it is that barrier that has created inequalities. So how do we now remove the barrier and construct a bridge that will link the rich, that will link the poor with the rich? So that is where the social worker is in a system to actually connect these people together, to connect these two ends together, so that what we do, we should see it as building bridges, not as building walls of separation, building walls of dichotomy, not as building wall of discrimination, and so on and so forth. So remember, I mentioned team building the other time and coalition building. Don't forget to be using that. When you have that competence, people will see you as a professional. So that is number 3, right? So number 4, engage in practice-informed research and research-informed practice. So what are we talking about here? From what is happening in the society, social workers will be able to ensure that a kind of research can come on what he or she has experienced, what is practically happening. You can do that and ensure that with that, it will help the knowledge base of other social workers or the social worker in general. And again, those research-informed practice, there are certain practices that we are actually undertaking now that are based on the research that researches that have been conducted before now. We are making use of their findings, we are making use of their recommendations. So the same thing, you can also have your own research and your recommendation, if it is good enough, it is veritable, it is applicable to situations, people can make use of it. So as social worker, we should not limit ourselves to what we just do. We should be interested in research, in conduct of research as well. This will broaden our knowledge base, and this will make our practice scientific. And when the practice is scientific, which means is very, very is reliable. You don't just use emotion, you don't just use your own personal view to do things. But when you conduct research, people get to gain from it. Even other professionals will also gain from there. So social workers understand the evidence that inform practice derived from multidisciplinary sources and multiple ways of knowing. They also understand the process of translating research findings into effective practice. That is what I've just explained. You use your practice experience and theory to inform scientific inquiry and research, apply critical thinking to engage in analysis of quantitative and qualitative research methods and research findings. And of course, you also know the way we conduct research. In our undergraduate days, in our postgraduate days, how do we engage in research? So that is not limited to school. When you begin practice, or when you start to profess your profession, that is social work, you also conduct research. You see all these donor agencies, United Nations Development Program, USAID, European Union Program, EU Prime, and so on and so forth, UNFPA, all these projects, all these donor agencies, before they intervene in anything, in any program or in any activity, they conduct research. They base what they do. They base their projects. They base their projects on the research findings of some people. That is why you see a project may have phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. At times, a project that's supposed to last three years, when the project is about to end, they will conduct a kind of research, a kind of survey. And when they do it, and if that finding suggests that that project has not actually achieved the objective for which it was commenced the other time, they may have to add the phase 2 of the project or expand the scope of that project. Is based on their findings, is based on the recommendation of research that has been actually conducted, because they also have their own research department. Apart from program department, finance department, and others, they have their research department. So as social workers, when you establish, or wherever you are, you should think about your own research unit. Think about your own research department or whatever, and ensure that people are there to help you sustain whatever you are doing. So when it is believed that when social worker has this, you are competent. Your competency level has actually moved up a ladder. Competency 5. Engage in policy practice. Social workers understand that human rights and social justice, as well as social welfare and services, are mediated by policy and its implementation at the federal, state, and local level. You see, we have policy makers and we have policy implementers. Because when policy are made, some people will implement the policy. And among the implementers are the social workers. So when social workers don't understand the policies that are in the system or that are in place, how do the social workers now, how do they now implement? How do they impact on the society? So when you are working, when you are intervening in anything, you should understand the policy of that particular place. You should understand the policy. If you are operating in a state and you don't understand the social policies surrounding your operation in that place, you will be in the dark and you'll be doing the wrong thing. Perhaps you may even be running against what is stated in the policy. You may not even know the direction where you are working. So what I'm saying in essence is that you should engage in policy practice. What is in the policies? As social workers, find time to look at all the social policies in Nigeria, number 1. Look at all the relevant social welfare policy or social policies in the country. That is at the national level. You come back to the state and you will be state specific. There are policies that are state specific. There are policies that are also that are also incongruent with what we have at the national level. I mean, there are policies that are also concurrent with what the national government, I mean, in this case, our own federal government also put in place. For example, this VAB law, it used to be VAB policy before, but now it's a VAB act. And the states, many states have domesticated that to be called VAB laws. So, and what is that verb? If you don't understand what that law says in your state or at the national level, and you're trying to intervene in the domestic violence, you may run foul of the law. So, as a social worker, you should equip yourself with the policies in place so that you will not be operating on obsolete policy. Look at the recent policy that is put in place. We have National Social Protection Policy, which is the current one nationally that is being used to address many of our social problems. So find time to go through that National Social Protection Policy, the latest edition. So just Google, you get it, and you read you will see that all in that policy, they are relevant to our practice. You need to know that. It is when you get to know this, then we'll say that you are really a professional. So your own professionals should not be operating, the professional of today should not be operating today as if we were in yesterday. No, it shouldn't be. You should live by the day. And it is your competency that will account for this. So social worker understand the history and current structure of social policies and services, the role of policy in service delivery, and the role of practice in policy development. How does a social worker, how does it also impact on that particular policy, in the policy formulation? Policy formulation has a cycle, it has a process. Social workers will understand that. Social workers will understand that. So, like I said the other time, there are policies that are related to social work, that are related to our social living. Please find time to get into to go through them and understand what we have in that policy. Even when you talk, when you are engaged in a discourse and you are making reference to all these policies, people will see you as really a professional. But when you are talking outside the policy and you are a social worker and somebody who is not a professional is calling your attention that, Mr. Man, have you ever read policy so? Have you ever read social development policy? Have you ever read the child rights law or child rights policy, as the case may be? And you are dumbfounded. It will not be too good. So as social worker, you identify social policy at the local, state, and federal level, like I said the other time. Investigate the policy in your local government, in your local area. Investigate the policy at the state level, in your state, in this case. Many states, some states have not actually domesticated the VAB Act I told you about. That is Violence Against Person Prohibition Act. At the state level, it has become law. So I've not heard of the local government which will be by law. But in this case, please, any policy that is related to our area of practice, we should not look away from there. Just ensure that you are part of that. Assess how social welfare and economic policy impact the delivery of and access to social services. The policy of fuel subsidy removal. We are still bearing the brunt of that removal. And look at the price of fuel now. As of today, I think some filling stations are selling at 950. I saw a filling station near Abuja last week selling at 990 something along Abuja Road, and so on and so forth. Is that policy the impact? How do you assess? You assess the impact on whatever intervention you want to bring in. As is the policy impact, does it have anything to do with the delivery of your own service? What is the impact on your service users? What is the impact on others? What is the impact on your fellow professional social workers, and so on and so forth. You should be able to assess that. Then apply critical thinking to analyze, formulate, and advocate for policy. Critical thinking to analyze, formulate, and advocate for policy. You know, I said you should interrogate. You should also investigate. I said you should investigate the policy. You should also interrogate those policies and see, is there any lacuna in that policy? Any lacuna identified in that policy? You look at it as social worker. If it is an area you can also contribute, you can also make your own contribution and channel your own contribution appropriately, not through protest. Not through protest. No, you can make your agitation politely through the right channels, and you know the channels through which the law are made. So you channel your own protests appropriately as social worker. I don't know if social workers are allowed to protest. Please, please remind me before we end the class. I want your contribution. So social workers join protests. So social workers join protests in the country. I mean, street protests, public protests, demonstrations, riots. So we join them as social workers, even though we have the guarantee of human rights. As social worker, can we join protests, the public protests as it's been done in Nigeria? Do we have that right? Can we do it as professionals? Can we protest just like others protest? Please, just take it as a question or as assignment. If you cannot answer today, you answer next week. So just think about it and let me have your responses. So you should also assess and respond to the political resources and technological environment that shape policy practice to effectively advocate for social and economic policy. So if you have actually known the process of making policy, you understand all I'm talking about here. Before a policy is formulated, there are certain considerations. There are certain things that people look at, those that are involved, the stakeholders in policy formulation, consider. There are situations they look at, there are factors they consider, and there are other stakeholders they bring in, and there is a process. There is a cycle of that policy formulation. So all this, social workers understand it. We believe that social workers will understand that. When you understand that, you are on top of the world, and you are number one in the society. The social work practitioners, you know, we are versatile in so many areas and so many fields. We can bring all other professions together and put them under our umbrella. If we know what we are doing, if we can perform competently, we can also profess efficiently. May God continue to be our guide. Yeah, competencies 6. Engage with individuals, families, groups, organizations, and communities. Of course, this is self-explanatory. Social workers understand that engagement is an ongoing component of the dynamic and interactive process of social work practice with. You see, in social work, we deal with individuals. After the individual, we deal with that, the family of that individual. The group of family, they become groups. We deal with the communities. We deal with different organizations, and so on and so forth. So, and we bring in our intervention on behalf of such individual, on behalf of diverse individuals, on behalf of diverse families, groups, and communities. Social workers value the importance of human relationships. Of course, you know that. We value the importance of human relationships because we relate. You must relate as a social worker. Your relationship must be superb. Your relationship with the fellow human being must be different from others. That is why when you see those in the medical line, those in the clinical setting, when the patient comes to them, they just prescribe the drug. The doctor may not even take his time to look to find it. I mean, use his time to actually to properly diagnose the patient. But the doctor will be looking at the clinical treatment. Whereas the social issues that the patient is battling with may not be known to the doctors. But if it is social worker will try to look at the whole thing holistically. But the doctor will just be concerned about the clinical. After the clinical, we just prescribe the drug. Okay, patient A, please, you can just go and meet them in the pharmacy, go and meet that nurse, and the doctor will just forget about that person. But in social work, it's not like that. You look at it holistically. So competency 6, we are talking about that individual, and we want to know the kind of relationship that exists between us, between the social worker and the service user. Social worker understand theories of human behavior and so on and so forth. We also understand strategies to engage diverse clients and constituency to advance practice effectiveness, because we talk about diversity the other time. You know, we have diverse clients, we have diverse constituencies as well. No two human beings are the same. So because of our understanding, we know how to engage them. Social workers understand how their personal experiences and effective reaction may impact their ability to effectively engage with diverse clients and constituencies. Social workers value principle of relationship building. We talked about that the other time, and interprofessional collaboration to facilitate the engagement with clients, constituencies, and other professionals as appropriate. In this case, social workers apply knowledge of human behavior. Social workers use empathy, reflection, interpersonal skills to effectively engage diverse clients and constituencies. Empathy is not sympathy. You put yourself in the shoes of that person as if you are the one wearing that shoe. So when you do that, that is what the social worker do. You don't sympathize, you empathize. And you also have what we call self-reflection. You look at yourself and look at your client very well. And because of that skill, and you have the interpersonal skill to relate with people, you demonstrate, social work also demonstrate high quality evidence-informed engagement skills, address complex systems related to clients and their community needs in different fields of practice. 7, assess individuals, family groups, organizations, and communities. I want you to link it with when we engage. You know, in 6 we engage, but in 7 we assess now. You know, there are two different things. You assess. The same thing, you assess. In this case, you try to interrogate, you try to evaluate, you try to look at the ongoing component of the dynamic and interactive process of social work practice and what we do. And on behalf of that individual, you try to assess very well. Your assessment must be sound. Social worker, as we understand the theories and everything, you should also understand the method of assessment with diverse client consistency. The only difference here is that we assess. Our assessment techniques, our assessment strategies must be so sound, and they must be so reliable that we can come up with a good result. So that at the end of the day, where we make mistakes or where we commit error, we can easily rectify and move on. The essence of assessment is to enable us to identify gaps that have been created as a result of our intervention. When we identify those gaps, how do we now bridge the gap? That is the essence of assessment and evaluation, because the assessment will enable you to safeguard future mistakes. The future occurrence that may come and cause chaos and cause katakata in the future, when you assess, you'll be able to address such concerns. Social workers understand how their personal experiences and affectivism may affect. So in this, may affect their assessment and decision making as well. Social workers collect and organize data, apply critical thinking to interpret information from clients and constituencies. We apply knowledge of human behavior. We develop mutually agreed on intervention goals and objectives for us to be able to assess. Because when you want to assess, how do you do your assessment? The assessment means that you already have an objective to achieve, and you have carried out a particular activity, and you want to assess that activity. It is when you have a very good objective that you can now assess whether those objectives have been met or not, depending on the method of the assessment you want to use. But invariably, your objectives must have been stated clearly. It must have been stated clearly for you to be able to assess that particular objective. So that is what is saying here. Based on the critical assessment of strengths, needs, and challenges within client and constituency. And you know, Of course, all of us are familiar with the SMART principles in setting objectives. You see, I hope you can still remember the SMART principle in setting objectives. And the SMART principle is simply your objective must be specific, your objective must be measurable, that you can just measure and actually quantify and say, okay, if the questions sets are 10 and the marks are 10, and for you to know that you have passed, it is when you score above 5 or you score 5 or above 5. That is, you score greater than or equal to 5, then you have passed. You can see that one, we can measure that. So that is measurable. And that A is achievable. Your objective must be achievable. Achievable is that what we can achieve, what we can see that actually we can get to that. We are going to a particular destination. Is it possible? For instance, you set an objective to say you want to go to, maybe from Bayelsa now, you want to go to the moon. And you are just a social worker. Even car you don't have, bicycle you don't even have, and you want to go to the moon. Of course, people do go to the moon, but they have the facility to go to that moon. It's quite achievable, isn't it? It's achievable. But for the person that has no bicycle, that has no resources, that has no tool, is not realistic for him. It's not realistic. He can't do it. That is why the R is there. Then your objective must be time bound. Time bound is that it must be stated within a particular period. You must be specific about the time you want to achieve that thing. That is when we say objective follows SMART principles. But when you set your objectives and the objective is just like, we may not even know, maybe until Jesus comes or until this world comes to an end. You see, that objective is not time bound. So that is just a digression. But for you to know how best, that is when you can assess properly. So your assessment tools must address that. And that skill, it is expected to be possessed by you as social worker. Social worker also select appropriate intervention strategies based on the assessment, research knowledge, values and preference of client and consistency. We have talked about research the other time, and as well as the need for us to make use of the knowledge or the findings we have from the research. So when you are actually trying to have or design an intervention strategy, you should look at that. Demonstrate high quality evidence informed assessment skills to address and monitor complex systems related to client or community needs in different fields of practice. Number 8. Number 8 now. Intervene with individuals, families, groups, organizations, and communities. Look at that. Number 7, number 6, number 7, number 8, they are related. They are all there with individuals, families, groups, organizations, and communities. The first one is engage. The second one is assessment. The third one is intervene. You have assessed. You have assessed a current situation. You have assessed an individual. You have engaged an individual. Maybe you invite your service user to your office. You engage in telling you story, history, his past experience, and everything. The next thing for you is to assess. Do you have that ability to assess well? Do you have the tool? Do you have the right assessment tools to do your job properly and professionally? And number 3 is for you, how do you now intervene? That is the most important thing. Your intervention in his life. That's why he has come to see you. The other 2 you have done, they are just preliminaries. It's like students who couldn't gain admission directly to the university and they're trying to do prelims. So those are prelims, and the social worker will follow the importance of interprofessional teamwork and communication interventions, recognizing that beneficial outcome may require interdisciplinary, interprofessional, and interorganizational collaboration. We should understand method of identifying, analyzing, and implementing evidence-informed interventions. You know, when you want to intervene, you look at it properly. You must have assessed the patient. You must have known the individual properly, the background and everything. As social workers, it is expected that you critically choose and implement interventions to achieve practice goals and enhance capacities of clients and constituencies. You should also apply knowledge of human behavior, like we said the other time. You use your interprofessional collaboration as appropriate to achieve beneficial practice outcome. I mentioned it the other time. You are not a lone ranger, and you are not the only person that knows everything. You don't know everything. You bring in other professionals to help you achieve, to help you come out with expected outcomes that will be impactful to your client or to your service users. So when you are designing any intervention strategy, you should actually consider other professionals that can be of help, that can bring in their expertise to ensure that you achieve the goal and objectives of actually, in the first place, bringing in that intervention to help the needy in this case. Negotiate, mediate, and advocate with and on behalf of diverse clients and constituency. We have talked about diversity the other time. Facilitate effective transitions and ending that advance mutually agreed on goals. Transition. When you end your intervention or you want to end your intervention, you must have actually assessed all you have done before you want to terminate. So when you want to terminate, you look at the transition. Does that client or service user, does he need another professional? Do you need to link him or her to somebody else to continue where you stop? Because where your own stops, others will begin from there. You should facilitate that. Demonstrate high quality and informed intervention skill to address complex systems. Just like in any others, you must demonstrate that. When you demonstrate all this, then we say this is a superb social worker. And finally, competency 9. Evaluate practice with individuals, family groups. We've been talking, assessment is just a subset of evaluation. I want to believe we understand that. So all you have done, individuals, group, community, and so on and so, organization, and so on and so forth. You have done all those things. You have intervened in the life of an individual. So you need to evaluate, because if you don't evaluate, you will not know whether you have achieved the objective. You will not know whether the outcomes are acceptable to your service user. You will not even know whether what you have done has impacted positively on the life of that individual or on the life of others that surround him or her, or on the society at large. You need to evaluate. That is why that evaluation comes last. So your power of evaluation is very, very important. Your power understanding of assessment is very, very important. Your understanding of intervention strategy is very, very important, as well as your engagement with your client. All these are very, very important. These are competencies that we feel as social workers you should have. And when you have them, in fact, the sky can no longer be your limit. You are to be in the sky and you explore everything in the sky. So may God be with us as social workers. So let me just pause a bit. If you have comments, questions, or you have contributions, we have the opportunity to do that now. Maybe in 5 minutes. I wouldn't know whether we can quickly go to the second aspect this afternoon. I think we can quickly take that one after your own comments. So let me listen to whoever wants to make comments or contribution in this regard before we move to the other one. In less than 20 minutes, we'll close the class.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yes, sir. Sir, the last competency, sir, the evaluation.
Yes.
Sir, I want you to tell us what are the things to look out for
that evaluation practice.
It's okay.
I noticed that, sir?
I'm with you. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. I noticed that you said we should see whether the intervention has helped the individual. Now, as a social worker, what are the things that we should look out for in our evaluation, sir? Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you for that. Which means you will follow him very well. And when in evaluation is a broad concept, and when you evaluate, there are so many things depending on your service user, depending on that individual. But what is important here is that the methods you want to use in evaluation, you should be in the know of that method and strategy you want to use. So what we're talking about here is how do you now select those appropriate methods for the evaluation? You evaluate outcomes. I hope you understand that. You need to evaluate outcomes. It's one of the things that you need to know. When you start an intervention, there must be an objective. And that objective will give you the outcome of where you are going. And that outcome, you need to evaluate it. Let me give you an instance. We engaged the institute. The institute was engaged in an intervention program on the care for the fistula victims. And these fistula clients, one of the outcomes that were given to the institute to reach or to achieve, at times we will call it deliverables, is for us to have actually reintegrate. I'm just giving that an example now, 50 fistula clients. And if at the end of the project, we are able to, okay, let me just give you the practical, the real situation now. So in 2017, we are to mobilize about 190, maybe between 80 and 100 fistula clients to the facility to be repaired. That is, to have surgery on them. But before we reach the second quarter of the project, the institute had been able to mobilize about 250. We could get that because of our evaluation of that project. How did we know that we reached 250? We have to go and look at the outcome we get from each of the states. What did we get? You see, if because of that evaluation, that propelled the USAID to further engage us in rehabilitation and reintegration in 2022. They went back to evaluate all we did as our own intervention then. Even though we were engaged in mobilization, we were not properly engaged in rehabilitation and reintegration, but we did a little part of it through our own follow-up activities. It's as a result of the evaluation of the outcomes or all we did. So we were given another chance to collaborate or to be a partner in 2022-2023 project. And that project is called MSF FPO project, which is an extension, a build-up to the Fistula Care Plus we did in 2017-2018. That's one area that we can evaluate that concern. You can also evaluate what your strategies, the strategies you have used in that intervention. You can also evaluate all the tools you have made use in that. You can even evaluate your personnel. You evaluate the personnel involved. You evaluate your team that are also involved in that intervention. The essence of evaluation is for you to move on. Because if the evaluation is not thoroughly done and is faulty, you may not know whether you have actually achieved your objective or you have not achieved the objective. And you should also remember the findings you have in everything you have done, you can also evaluate the lessons learned in that particular intervention. You can evaluate. You can also evaluate your sponsor. You need to evaluate your sponsors as well, or your partner in that intervention. You need to evaluate. When you evaluate that, then that will give you a better opportunity to decide whether you want to repeat that project or you want to expand that project. Perhaps you may even evaluate the time frame of the project, the life cycle of that, the lifespan of that project. A project may be a year. Your intervention, you may determine that you want to intervene in the life of a particular community or the life of an individual or group of individuals, maybe for a year. And when you do your evaluation, and evaluation suggests that that project intervention should not stop. You should have a phase 2, or you should have an extension. And a good example is what I've just given you. Initially, when the USAID came in through the Agenda 8, it was one state. When that state performed very well, as a result of the evaluation, they extended it to 5 states. A year extended to second year because of the evaluation. And you should also remember that we have summative evaluation, and we have this final, this midterm evaluation that we also do, formative evaluation and summative evaluation as well. I wouldn't know whether that one answer your question, but essentially we are talking about the whole, in any intervention that you are doing, there must be an evaluation. Your evaluation skills will tell the kind of person you are as a professional. Thank you.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, I'm with you, sir.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Can we just say that the 6 last discussion we had now, the engagement, assessment and intervention and evaluation is associated with a professional social worker?
Yes, now. That is why we are discussing.
Okay. You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Any other question or comments or contribution? Any other? Okay. If you do not have further questions, let me look at the time. We have about 30 minutes to close this session. Let's quickly look at rapport building. And that shouldn't take us much time. I'm sorry if I want us to finish that so that the next one we can proceed. Yeah, rapport is getting on well with another person or group of people by having things in common. This makes the communication process easier and usually more effective. You know, when you are well with others, your minds are the same. You have the same spirits. You have many things in common. You tend to achieve better. That is why many people say team means that everyone is important. Means that everyone becomes very important. Because when everyone does things together, they do things in common, they achieve better. They achieve better. It means that together, everyone can achieve better. So as a result of this, this also makes communication process easier and usually more effective. Rapport building is about developing a connection, trust, and understanding with others. Please just note that trust. In building rapport, there must be a trust. When the trust is established, even at the family level, when the trust is there and the trust is not broken, you see that family tends to grow and grow and grow and grow and becomes enviable to others. But where the trust is broken in any way, it's going to be a problem. And understanding with others, it is crucial for effective communication and building successful relationships in the workplace. when we talk about rapport building, we are also linking it with communication. Because where we take people as they are, where we get on with another person in the same spirit, we tend to communicate better. Actually, this is a crucial aspect of every relationship, especially for social workers. By establishing strong relationship and connection with the service users, significant others, family and community, the social worker can achieve positive outcomes and make a lasting impact. Through active listening, respect for cultural norms, and collaboration with field officers can build trust, they can enhance communication, and also engage the community. That is, by having active listening, respect for cultural norms, and collaboration, social workers can achieve better. So what are the benefits of rapport building? One, enhanced communication. I think I just mentioned it in passing. The building rapport allows for effective and open communication between individuals. When rapport is established, there is a higher level of trust and understanding, leading to clear and meaningful exchanges of information. You know, when I trust you, when I have trust in you, everything you say is meaningful to me. But when I don't have trust, there's no way. Whatever you say, I will just hear it for hearing's sake. Look at today's government, the federal government, and whatever. When Mr. President was delivering his speech, I think during the end bad governance protest, because people were not actually moved by the speech Mr. President delivered, no matter how beautiful it was, but because people have lost trust. The trust they have in the present government is a bit broken. People don't want to listen. No matter what the president said today, this day, people just said, that is how he said the other time, because the trust is not there. So there is no rapport, the kind of good rapport between the leaders and the led. Those of us that are followers, those of us that are just ordinary citizens, there is that disconnect. But where there is a connection, it means that the communication will be enhanced. We want to listen, and we will get to know what that person is saying, and we'll be eager to understand what he or she is saying, because there is a meaningful exchange of information. For example, when a social worker takes the time to engage in friendly conversations and actively listen to community members' perspectives, it helps establish rapport. This rapport enables the officer to communicate project goals, gather feedback, and address any concern more effectively. I want you to actually note that active listening to your service user is very, very germane in communication. You don't do much of talking. Allow your service user to talk and allow him or her to express himself or herself. Don't interject. It is you that is the service provider that you need to listen. Anyway, that is an aspect in communication. I don't know whether you have communication as a course in this particular program. I know those in the intermediate class, they have effective communication as part of the courses to go through, or the lectures to be delivered. But in that, active listening is very, very important. That builds a kind of confidence, a kind of trust try to generate that trust from your client, from your service user. When he or she knows that you are listening to his or her plight. So when a rapport is built, there is an enhanced communication. It means that you are getting on well with that particular individual, with your service user. And when you get on well with him or her, it means you are listening to him, to everything he or she is saying. Then trust and cooperation. We have talked about trust. The trust and cooperation is there. Rapport building fosters trust, which is essential for cooperation and collaboration. When people feel a sense of trust, they are more likely to be open, honest, and willing to work together towards common goals. But when that trust is there, you tend to achieve the outcome of that, your efforts, very, very early than expected. But when the trust is not there, you know, and there's no cooperation from that end. But when you build a rapport, you get that. Example, when the social worker takes the initiative to participate in community events, listen to community members' concerns, and address them. This consistent effort builds trust. And as a result, community members become more willing to engage with the officer. They will want to share information with that an officer and actively support the initiative you must have brought because you are listening to them. You participate in their events. They see you as part of them. They improve relationship. Don't forget, social workers are much more interested in relationship building. Relationship is very, very important in what we do as professionals. Rapport building strengthens relationship by creating a positive and supportive environment. When individuals have good rapport, they develop deeper connections, empathy, and understanding, which leads to stronger and more meaningful relationships. When the trust is there, the connection is there, you develop that connection, you have the empathy, and you have all this, definitely relationship will be stronger. And the strength of that relationship, nobody will dare break that strength or weaken that strength. Example is by establishing rapport with community members, social workers create positive relationship based on respect and understanding. They take the time to get to know the community tradition, values, and concerns, which strengthen their bond. This relationship paved the way for meaningful engagement, effective problem solving, and long-term partnerships. Of course, this is a self-explanatory. The conflict resolution. Rapport building contributes to effective conflict resolution by promoting open dialogue. You see, the trust is there. Your client will be open. Your service user will be open, will not hide anything from you. The communication is enhanced. The relationship is there. So such a person, when you have that, if there is any conflict, it's very easy for you to resolve that conflict. When individuals have established rapport, they can address conflicts in a constructive manner, finding mutually beneficial solutions and maintaining positive relationships. Example, social workers with good rapport can effectively resolve conflict within the family and community. They listen to different viewpoints, mediate discussions, and help find common ground by promoting open dialogue and understanding. They facilitate peaceful resolutions that benefit the community as a whole. Improve productivity. Of course, what do we expect to get? We need to have improved productivity. When you build the rapport, your outcome will be very impactful and will be very, very useful. And you get to achieve this very, very, very quickly, and you can be proud that you have actually intervened in the life of those persons. So what are the techniques for building rapport? Active listening. I think I mentioned it the other time. These are techniques. Active listening. Give your full attention to the person you are interacting with. Maintaining eye contact and showing genuine interest in what they are saying. Avoid interrupting and demonstrate in understanding by paraphrasing or summarizing their point. You have a client before you, sitting right in front of you. And that client is talking to you, is narrating her experiences and everything, telling you everything. But you are busy chatting with somebody else. Your mind is not there. Or you are attending to another person while that person is talking to you. You see, which means it's less important, it's secondary. So that one you are doing is primary. As so far as that client is before you, 100% attention must be given to that client or service user. Maintain eye contact with him. That is when he or she will know that actually you are listening to him or her, and you don't interject. Don't interrupt him or her. Let him finish whatever he or she is saying. When speaking with service user, active listening to their concern and story about their experiences, show empathy and understanding by reflecting back their emotions and demonstrating that you have value, you value their perspective. In fact, after talking, after speaking to you, telling you all the stories, allow him or her to finish. When he finishes, to let him know, or to let him or her know that you actually listen, you can summarize all he has said. That is for confirmation. Or paraphrase all he has said. You see, the person will be happy that this person listening, and you will not even make mistake, because understanding some story may be difficult even for the service provider. I mean, in this case, the social workers. When you don't understand, but by the time you paraphrase or you summarize all he has said, if you have missed anything, the service user will correct you. That, oh, sir, this is not what I said. I said Monday, 22nd of August, not Monday, 22nd of September. Because in your listening, you might have had 22nd of September, but whereas the man or the person said 22nd of August. So when you paraphrase, it will give room for correction, and any wrong opinion, viewpoint will be removed. The non-verbal communication. Pay attention to your body language, facial expressions, and gestures. Use open and welcoming posture. Smile and nod appropriately to show attentiveness and receptiveness. Somebody is before you. You should watch your composition. Watch your disposition at that time, and also watch your body language. You don't frown face. Your facial expression will say a lot about you, and the client will be interpreting. There will be different interpretations by the client before you, by your service users. When your face just changed, when you frown face, in your first encounter with that client, welcome him or her with a very beautiful smile. Very beautiful smile. That person will see an acceptance from your end that actually they want me in this office, or this man actually wants to help me. It will have that assurance. That assurance will be confirmed. But when the person gets to the office, or the service user gets to your office or to where you are, and it finds you in a situation where your face is not all that receptive, or while you are shouting at some colleagues, or while you are addressing some colleagues rudely, or even when he or she sits before you and your body posture or your body language is saying different things, it has effect on whatever intervention you want to do. Example, when meeting with your colleagues, field team or service user, maintain an open and approachable posture. Use friendly facial expression and nod to indicate that you are engaged and receptive to their input and ideas. When your client is talking, you can nod. That is to affirm what he or she is saying. If you say, you remember in 1998 when Abacha died, you can nod and say, yes. You go, yes. When you do that, the person will know you are following him. You are with him, body and soul, not in body alone or not in soul alone. Establish common ground. Find shared interests, experiences, or values that create a sense of connection. Look for commonalities in hobbies, cultural background, or goals to establish a foundation for rapport. Your client may say, all right, when I was in school and I went to University of Lagos, and perhaps you are also from that university, you can say, yes, that's my own alma mater as well. I went to that university. The person will be happy that, okay, suppose both of us are alumni. So you have tried to establish a common ground. You have tried to establish a kind of shared interest. You have a commonality together. Something has actually brought the two of you together. You might not be in the same set, But the fact that he said, I attended University of Lagos and you also attended University of Lagos, say, yes, that is my university. Is it that person? That is a common ground. Or is a person, maybe he said, okay, it was one of the spouses that has just come to you and he said, okay, and I'm from Calabar. I'm from River State, and I'm from Cross River State, and this is what has happened between me and my husband, and blah, 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 blah. And perhaps when you had your youth service, you serve in Cross River, specifically in Calabar, you can just say, yes, that is my state, that is where I serve. The person will see that, oh, so you must understand the culture of Calabar people. You will try to establish that common ground. But when it is not there, don't put the common ground that is not existent. That is, don't try to impress your client by saying what is untrue. By saying what is untrue. Example, when interacting with your colleagues, field team, or service user, find common ground by discussing shared experiences of working in a challenging environment, the commitment to making a difference, or the person for helping the service user, significant others, or local community. Then so empathy. Empathy, I think I explained the other time. There's no need of wasting of that. Let me just go to an example. When field officers share their difficulty and frustration, express empathy by acknowledging the challenges they face in their work, understanding the emotional toll it may have, and offering support and encouragement. You offer support and encouragement. Encourage them. Don't discourage. But put yourself as if you are the person that actually experienced that challenge. When you do that, your service user, you are number one, you are 100% good in front of your service user. Nobody else is as good as you as a professional. Then adapt communication style. You still have your own, you adapt. When you have your own communication style, everybody has his own communication style. Everybody has his own way of communicating anyway. But when you have a service user as a social worker, you need to adapt. You need to adapt to that communication style that is suitable to that client or your service user. Adjust your communication approach to match the preferences and needs of others. Adjust your communication approach. Observe the communication style, pace, and level of formality, and adapt accordingly to create a comfortable and effective interaction. If you are a fast talker and your service user is a slow learner or somebody that may not understand quickly, you need to slow down the pace of your communication. That is, you are adjusting to his own needs. Service user in this context is the most critical, is the most important than the social worker, because he has run to you to seek for assistance. He has come to you to seek for help. He has come to you to enable you, assist him or her, to lift him or her up a bit from that standard where he or she is. If it is domestic violence he or she has suffered, how do you remove him from that, he or she from that, the scene of the domestic violence? How do you alleviate his or her suffering? So that is why he has come. So you need to adapt to him or her, or what he or she needs. When communicating with community members, be mindful of cultural norms and language barriers. Use simple language, speak clearly, and adapt your communication style to ensure understanding and build rapport. Don't meet your clients and you are blowing, because you are a grammarian, you are blowing grammars, because you know English more than the British or more than the English person, you are blowing English. No, come to the level of your service users. Come to their level. If you speak the same language, you can speak their language the way he or she will understand. Even if you understand their language, you see the same language, and you're speaking in proverbs and parables and all this, and you think that person understands. You may not understand you, so you need to adjust. You use simple language. Simple language is the end thing, and you speak clearly. You know, some people, they just talk, they don't communicate. They just talk, they don't communicate. When you communicate, it means that you pass a message, and that person your listener actually grasps the message, and you can get the feedback from that person. It means you have communicated. But when you just talk, when you talk, when you just speak and the message does not sink, it means that you have not done anything. Your communication is not effective, and your communication needs to be effective. So as a social worker, there's need for you to possess effective communication skills. It's very important. You can read all this up. Effective communication skill for social workers. It's very, very important that you do it. Some people, because of their body, because of their non-verbal communication, they have destroyed so many interventions. Then trust building. We talked about trust the other time. Build trust by demonstrating reliability, integrity, consistency in your actions and words. In your actions and words. Don't be like those pastors or those imams that will say, just hear my word, though, never follow my action. Don't look at what I do, but what I say is what you should respect. Social workers don't do that, yo. If you tell people not to lie, and you are lying, which kind of social worker be that? You tell people, please maintain decorum in a meeting, and you, as a social worker, you don't even do that. So what's the essence of saying it? You only waste word. You only waste word by saying it. So your action, your action must match your words as social worker. And when your action match your word, it means that integrity is there. Everybody now in Nigeria, we complain about corruption. Whereas every one of us, at our own desk, wherever we are, even on the street, we are corrupt. Everyone is corrupt, everywhere. All of us, we are corrupt. But as a social worker, do you actually notice that? Do you actually observe that? Can you change the narrative as an individual from your own end? You start from your own table, start from your own home. One of such things that we know that people, especially the civil servants, they don't go to work as expected. They are not punctual at work. They don't go to office as expected. Do they go to office promptly? They are to resume at 8 and also leave office by 4 p.m., isn't it? You as a social worker, you find yourself in that position as well. Maybe you are a civil servant somewhere, or even you work with private organizations. Do you respect that time of duty? Do you respect them? Do you just say, I'm not the only person here? Others, they don't come to work as expected. Some may even come at 10 and leave by 2 o'clock or leave by 3. Do you join them? Do you join the back wagon? As a social worker, you don't need to do that. When you give people time, okay, my client used to come by 8 o'clock. You should also respect that time. When you respect the time, you build trust in your service user. You respect the time, you are maintaining your integrity. Okay, you are a woman social worker, and in one of your advocacy or in one of your campaign or whatever, or enlightenment programs, you are talking, you have talked or you are talking against indecent dressing. And you as a woman or as a social worker, the kind of dress you put on is indecent. Does your word, does it match your action? So as social workers, we must be very, very careful to allow people rely on us, to allow people see us as professionals of integrity. We should maintain our integrity. Do we avoid corruption at all costs? When people drive against traffic, when there is a long jam on the road, do you also join others to drive against traffic? So these are things Simple things that we should observe, that we should try and do. Are we consistent in all our actions? Do we say one thing now and tomorrow we say another thing? Do we change like chameleon in our actions? But what we say is different from what we do. No, we should watch. As social workers will not do that. It is when you do this, then we can say that you are building a good rapport. Then the trust will be there, rapport will be built, and people will see you as dependable and trustworthy. And when you have those qualities, when you have those virtues, honestly, you will be on top of the world, and you will be signing anywhere you are practicing as a professional. So I want to thank you. We're going to stop at this point. So if you have questions, if you have any comments or we have contribution, we can do that in 2 minutes because we have just 2 minutes. I'm sorry, I thought it would just be 20 minutes or 5 minutes, or 15 minutes. So questions, contributions. Yes, Mr. Gbenga Motoyosi, I can see your hand. Please unmute and ask your question. Gbenga Motoyosi, okay, perhaps it's an O hand. And Mr. Oluwole, your mic is on. Oluwole Patience, so it should be Mrs. Oluwole. Mojisoluwa Patience, do you have anything to say? No. So, Gbenga Motoyosi is not talking. Anybody? Anyway, if there is no question, there is no comment, I think we can call it a day at this point. So do well to go through all we've been able to do. To do.
Hello, sir.
Yes. Yeah, please go ahead.
Hello, good afternoon, sir. Sorry, my question is that how can social workers handle a language barrier where you don't speak the same language with your client?
It's very easy now. You can't be alone there. If you are a Yoruba person and you go to Hausa land, you can engage an Hausa person to be a part of your team, or your professional colleague that is there that understand Hausa is to be part of you. That is why you need to build your own team. So that person will be doing the interpretation and will be doing the translation, and will even take you through their culture and everything in your own team meeting.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So if there's no other question, I think we can call it a day. This is exactly 4 o'clock, even though somebody has eaten a part of my time. So until next week when we have the cause to meet again, I want to say bye-bye and remain blessed.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Bye-bye, sir. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.